Hello everyone and welcome to today's lesson of the Butterfly Princess Academy, where curiosity takes flight and wisdom wears wings. In today's lesson we're going to be discussing epic medieval Chinese voyages. But firstly of all, I'm going to read you an article by Michael Wood, who is a professor of public history at the University of Manchester. And this article has been published in the April 2025 edition of the BBC History magazine. It is so I'm going to read you the article and then I'm going to discuss in more depth about epic Chinese voyages. So here goes. Why Elon Musk should take a lesson from Confucius. So this is Michael Wood's article that has been published in the April 2025 edition of the BBC History magazine. So here goes. Watching the news on Elon Musk's SpaceX project to make humanity a multiple species, beginning with a colony on Mars, I found myself reflecting on an earlier moment in history. Between 1405 and 1433, the Chinese sent 7 great missions to Southeast Asia and across the Indian Ocean, visiting the Persian Gulf, India and East Africa. The first fleet alone inspired many dozens of ships and more than 27,000 men. Admiral Zheng He's fleet included the biggest wooden vessels yet built, dwarfing the tiny ships that later carried Columbus and modern theories that such Ming treasure ships could have exceeded 400 feet, equal to 122 metres in length. However, are now rejected by experts. The size of wooden ships was always limited by the length of trees available for the keel. For sailing in heavy seas, a single strongly protected scarf drawn keel is the most that ship riggers judge acceptable for safety. According to today's traditional shipbuilders in Vouges, that this would allow a boat in Chinese junk style to be at most 200 to 240 feet, 61 to 73 metres long. These vessels were highly seaworthy. Between 1846 and 1848, a traditional Chinese junk sailed to the US and Britain, where it was visited by Queen Victoria. Why Emperor Young commanded this enormous expedition of resources is still the subject of much controversy. Today in China, these journeys are characterised as peaceable missions to display the flag, encourage trade and wield Chinese soft power. But the idea that Zheng He's expeditions were done for no political, economic or practical gain seems on the face of it unlikely. These routes had long been travelled by Arab navigators, and the Chinese had first visited East Africa as early as the Tang Dynasty, AD 18 to 907. In some places, such as the commercial exports, for example, Peru in South Sumatra became an important Chinese trading post and a base for journeys into the Indian Ocean. Zheng He's voyages then were to advertise Chinese power, exert tribute, open up new trade routes, and in particular to get the states of Southeast Asia to acknowledge the power and majesty of the Ming. When they had they engaged in welfare, destroying pirate fleets near and interventing in civil wars to establish friendly regimes in Sumatra and what's now Sri Lanka. So though they were not trying to colonise or conquer, their goal was to establish a network of control between China and its various tributary states and kingdoms. The sea routes were cleaned up and made peaceful, so the natives were able to pursue their vacations in peace. At the moment, with its technological lead over Europe, China seemed poised to dominate much of the world in 1433. However, the voyages were abruptly stopped and the fleets broken up in a memorable advert for the aerospace company Lockheed in the 1980s. That discussion was compared to giving up the moon programme after Apollo 8. Though the greatest scientific invention of the pre-modern world, the Chinese were dismissed as lacking the desire to push the bounds of knowledge. But that is to misunderstand the concerns of traditional Chinese civilization. There were two key reasons for stopping the voyage. First was the enormous expanse, including inevitable losses at sea. But there was something else. The ruling Chinese ethnic was the cultivation of the Middle Kingdom, not the conquest of the domination of other people. As the metropolitans in the Ming court observed, it was the Europeans, not the Chinese, who were consumed with the ideas of supreme domination, always of what others enjoy. So when I hear the SpaceX plans, I think of Zheng He. Curiosity and scientific interest, no doubt, will drive human beings to the uninhabitable waste of Mars, if only to have its rare earth materials. But beyond it, it's most right to think that humanity can become a multi-world species. The fact is, I understand them are completely against it. I understand them are completely against it. The distances are too vast for humanity to travel to other inhabitable systems, even if they exist. Our fate is on our planet, and here our efforts should be in the time of crisis. Confucius, I'm sure, would agree. So that is the article, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and that has been written by Michael Wood, who is a professor of public history at the University of Manchester. Now I'm going to go into a bit more depth with you about these epic medieval Chinese voyages. So here goes. Between 1405 and 1433, the Ming Dynasty launched 7 unprecedented maritime expeditions under Admiral Zheng He, marking Chinese zenith of pre-modern naval dominance. These voyages, unmatched in scale and ambition, blended technological innovation, cultural diplomacy and imperial grandeur, only to vanish abruptly in a pivot toward isolationism. Zheng He's fleet comprised 317 ships and over 27,000 crew members on the maiden voyage. Defending contemporary European fleets, the largest treasure ships measured up to 400 feet long compared to Columbia's 85-foot Santa Maria, where with 9 masts and watertight bulkheads for stability. Over 7 expeditions, the fleet visited 7 nations. Over 7 exhibitions, the fleet visited 37 nations from Southeast Asia to Arabia and East Africa, establishing tribunary relationships and trade networks. Key milestones: 1405 to 1407, first voyage to Jaffa and Calcutta, suppression of pirates near Sumatra. The 1413 to 1415, fourth voyage reached Hummus in East Africa, returning with giraffes and envoys. 1431 to 1433, final voyage under Emperor Zheng, during which Zheng He died in India. Technological marvels: the Ming fleet showcased China's naval supremacy. Treasure ships built in the Aegean shipyard. These vessels featured staggered masts, balanced rudders, and multi-deck designs for cargo, troops and diplomats. Navigation detailed star charts and signal systems, flags, drums, carrier pigeons enabled precious oceanic travel. Logistics: specialized ships carried horses, freshwater, repair materials, allowing years-long voyages. Diplomatic and cultural legacy: unlike European colonial models, Zheng He's mission prioritised soft power. Tribunary systems: foreign rulers sent envoys and exotic gods, for example African giraffes, to China, receiving silks and titles in return. Over 30 states became Ming tributes. Cultural exchange: Islamic translators facilitated diplomacy in Arab ports, while Chinese plumbers and medical knowledge spread globally. Zheng He himself, a Muslim, prayed to both tourists, sea goddess and Islamic scholars. Enduring influence: temples honouring Zheng He exist in Malaysia and Java, and oral histories in Kenya suggest Chinese-African intermarriages. The abrupt end: why China retreated. Despite their success, the voyages ceased after 1433 due to confusion, opposition, scholar officials demanding maritime ventures, wasteful, advocating agrarian investment over foreign trade. Northern threats: Mongol insurgents redirected resources to fortify the Great Wall. Political shifts: Emperor Haxel disabled the fleet and later rulers destroyed navigational records, erasing institutional knowledge. Historical paradox and modern echoes. Zheng He's voyages challenge Eurocentric narratives of exploration. While China could have dominated global trade, Confucius' values and insulationist policy shifted further expansion. Today, his legacy is evoked in China's Belt and Road Initiative, mirroring the blend of infrastructure investment and geopolitical influence seen in Ming tribunary displays. The treasure voyages typifies a fleeting moment when China's maritime ambition outpaced the world. Their creation underscores how cultural priorities and political choices can redirect history. Zheng He's story remains a testament to exploration, power to connect civilizations, and a cautionary tale about fragility of progress. Zheng He's voyages stand as a lasting testament to human ambition and ingenuity, a fleeting moment when China's sails blotted out horizons. Only to retreat into historical obscurity. These expeditions were more than naval feats. They embodied a worldview where power was projected through cultural exchange as much as through force. Yet their abrupt end raises haunting questions. What might a sustained era of China's maritime dominance have meant for global trade, diplomacy, or even the balance of world power? The Ming's retreat into isolation reminds us that progress is never inevitable. It is shaped by choices, fears, and the tension between curiosity and control. The legacy of these voyages challenges us to rethink exploration beyond Eurocentric framework. Zheng He's story is not merely about ships and maps, but about the constellations and fusions of culture. Islamic translators on Chinese skets, African giraffes in Ming palaces, and the silent erosion of knowledge where logs are burned and ships left to rot. It is a narrative of what could have been, urging us to ask how many other histories lie buried beneath dominant narratives. Inspiration for future study. 1. Technical echoes. Investigate how Ming shipbuilding innovations, watertight bulkheads, staggered mass influence later maritime cultures or even modern engineering. 2. Comparative exploration. Contrast Zheng He's treasure fleet diplomacy with European colonial models. How did differing cultures value Confucius versus shape outcomes? 3. Memory and erasure. Explore why Zheng He was resurrected as a national icon in 20th century China. How do modern states weaponise or sanctionise historical figures for political ends? 4. Gender and power. Research the role of women in Ming maritime history. For example, Taoist goddess worshipped by sailors, or the untold stories of female traders in port cities. 5. Ecology of exploration. Analyse the environmental impact of the voyages, from the logging of ancient forests for shipbuilding to the introduction of foreign species. 6. Modern parallels. Draw connections between the Belt and Road initiative and Ming tribunal systems. Is soft power diplomacy repeating history or rewriting it? A closing challenge. Zheng He's Voyages invites us to navigate the murky waters of historical silence. For every celebrated explorer there are countless unrecorded journeys, merchants, migrants who shape the world. Let his story inspire you to seek out marginalised voices, question why certain tales are amplified while others fade, and imagine how the next chapter of global connections might be written. What will you discover when you set sail beyond the familiar? Zheng He's treasure voyages 1405 to 1433 represent the pinnacle of medieval Chinese maritime exploration, blending imperial ambition, cultural exchange and technological inventions. Sponsored by the Ming Emperor, these 7 expeditions projected China's power across Southeast Asia, the Indian Ocean, Arabia and East Africa. So, scale and ambition, a naval marvel. Zheng He commanded 300 plus ships, including 60 to 62 colossal treasure ships, over 400 feet long with 9 masts. His fleet carried 28,000 plus personnel, diplomats, soldiers, scholars and medical experts to establish tribunal relationships and showcase Ming supremacy. The voyages aimed to secure trade routes for spices, gems and exotic goods, e.g. for example African giraffes and Arabian pearls. Over where foreign states with China's technological powerhouse, for example magnetic compasses, watertight hulls. Cultural exchange and diplomacy. The voyages facilitated unprecedented cross-cultural interactions. Exotic tributes. African giraffes were interpreted as the mythical krill, symbolising divine favour from the Ming. Religious Zheng He, a Muslim, prayed to the Teist goddess during storms, blending Islamic and Chinese spiritual practices. Diplomatic networks. Envoys from first plus states, e.g. Calcutta, has returned to China, reinforcing the Confucius tribunary system. Technological inventions. China's naval dominance relied on breakthroughs. Magnetic compasses enabled precise navigations across the Indian Ocean. Treasure ships, multi-deck vessels with staggered bulkheads and stern post rubbers, unmatched in size until the 19th century. Logistical mastery, warehouses stored tribute goods while multilingual crews, including Arab translators, bridge cultural divides. The voyage ceased abruptly after 1433 due to, we've read that. Zheng He remains a folk hero in Southeast Asia, revered in temples from Java. His voyages symbolises a lost era of Chinese global engagement, contrasting with later isolation. Modern China's Belt and Road Initiative often invokes his legacy to frame contemporary ambitions. Here are some questions about the epic Chinese voyages. So 1. What was the primary purpose of Zheng He's voyages and did they achieve their intended goals? Answer. The Ming Dynasty aimed to assert political dominance and expand the tribunary system, securing loyalty from foreign states through inspiring displays of naval power. While the Voyages succeeded in establishing trade networks and diplomatic ties, for example, 30+ states sent envoys to China, they failed to create lasting colonies or economic dominance. Unlike later European explorers, critics argue the expeditions prioritised prestige over tangible gains. 2. How did Zheng He's fleet reflect China's technological supremacy? Answer. The treasure ships, 400 feet long, dwarf European carvels. Watertight bulkheads for ship durability, magnetic compasses and detailed star charts for navigation, multi-deck designs for cargo, troops and diplomats. These technologies underscored China's maritime ingenuity but were later abandoned due to isolationist policies. What cultural legacies did these voyages leave in Southeast Asia and beyond? Zheng He became a folk hero in regions like Java, where temples still honour him. The voyages also introduced Chinese chemicals, silks and medicine to Africa and Arabia, brought Islamic scholars and rare animals, for example giraffes, to China, inspired hybrid traditions such as Javanese Baltic patterns incorporating Chinese motifs. Why did China abruptly halt oceanic expeditions after 1433? Well, I've told you that. How do Zheng He's voyages challenge Eurocentric views of exploration? Unlike European colonial models focused on conquest, Zheng He's missions emphasised diplomatic and cultural exchange. His fleet sought tribute through intimidation, not tyrannical control. This highlights a distinct Chinese worldview where soft power and symbolic supremacy were prioritised over exploitation. What lessons did these voyages offer for modern global diplomacy? Zheng He's blend of military might and cultural diplomacy mirrors modern soft power strategies. However, the Ming failures to sustain exploration underscores the risk of short-term ambitions without institutional support. His legacy is often invoked in China's Belt and Road Initiative, which similarly combines infrastructure investment with geopolitical influence. Were there earlier Chinese maritime traditions that influenced Zheng He? Yes, the Song Dynasty 960 to 1279 developed advanced surfing technologies, while the Yuan Dynasty, Mongolia-ruled expanded trade with Persia and East Africa. Zheng He's voyages built on centuries of shipbuilding and navigational knowledge, proving China's pre-modern maritime prowess. What role did religion play in these expeditions? Zheng He, a Muslim, balanced multiple faiths. He prayed to a Thai sea goddess for safe voyages. Islamic translators adapted diplomacy in Arab ports. Buddhist monks abroad dominated foreign cultures. This point reflects the synthetic religious landscape of Ming China. Why are Zheng He's voyages less prominent in Western history narratives? Eurocentric historians often prioritise Columbus or Ming, framing expeditions as a European phenomenon. Additionally, China's post-1433 isolation erased maritime achievements from global memory until 20th century scholarship revived Zheng He's stories as a counter-narrative. Could China have dominated global trade if the voyage continued? Historians debate this what-if scenario. With their technological edge, China might have controlled Indian Ocean trade. However, Confucius' disdain for merchants and the lack of profit-driven profit, unlike European merchants, suggests sustained dominance was unlikely without systematic economic reforms. Zheng He's voyages exemplify how exploration is shaped by cultural values as much as technology. Whilst China's medieval ambitions were unmatched, their abrupt end reveals the fragility of progress when political will falters. What other histories might we reclaim by looking beyond the Eurocentric lenses? Exploring the epic voyage of the Ming Dynasty led by the legendary Admiral Zheng He represent one of the most ambitious maritime endeavours in human history. These expeditions, spanning from 1405 to 1433, were a unique blend of technical ingenuity, cultural diplomacy and imperial ambition. They not only showcased China's unmatched naval prowess during the medieval era, but also left a rich legacy that continues to resonate in modern times. The Ming Dynasty shipbuilding achievements were unparalleled in their time. The treasure ships were colossal vessels with some measuring over 400 feet in length, nearly 5 times the size of Christopher Columbus's Santa Maria. These ships embodied advanced engineering techniques that not only set a standard for naval architecture in the 15th century, but also influenced maritime cultures worldwide. One of the most significant inventions was the watertight bulkhead system, a design that divided the ship's hull into multiple compartments. This feature enhanced the structural integrity of the ships and prevented water from spreading in case of a breach, a critical advancement for long voyages across unpredictable seas. This technique was later adapted by European shipbuilders, contributing to the evolution of modern shipbuilding. Additionally, the staggered mast system of the treasure ships improved navigation and wild effect, enabling the fleet's transfers fast. Their innovations, the development of advanced rigging systems in Western naval architecture during the age of exploration. The Ming shipyards particularly also provided the use of standardised production methods, allowing for the rapid construction of large fleets. This practice of moulder construction would later influence industrial shipbuilding, laying the groundwork for modern naval engineering. The legacy of Ming shipbuilding is a testament to the integrity of Chinese engineers. His contribution continues to shape maritime technologies today. Zheng He's voyages were fundamentally different from the European colonial expedition that followed in the 15th and 16th centuries. While European powers such as Spain and Portugal embarked on their voyages with a mercantile agenda seeking to exploit resources, establish colonies and spread Christianity, Zheng He's fleet operated within the framework of Confucius' tribune resistance, which prioritised diplomacy and cultural exchange over territorial conquest. The treasure's fleet's primary goal was to project the Ming Emperor's power and and prestige, fostering goodwill among neighbouring states and establishing China as the central authority in a hierarchical world order. This approach was rooted in Confucius' ideals of harmony and mutual respect. By contrast, European explorers, driven by the pursuit of wealth and resources, often employed forces and coercion to exert value from the territories they encountered. The Spanish conquest of the Americas, for example, was marked by violence, enslavement, and the imposition of foreign reign. 10 minutes. Yeah. For centuries after his death, Zheng He's legacy faded into obscurity, largely due to the Ming Dynasty's turn toward isolationism. His records were buried in ships dismantled and his achievements relegated to the margins of history. It was not until the 20th century, during the rise of modern China, that Zheng He was resurrected as a national hero. This revival was not accidental. In the early 20th century, as China grappled with the legacy of Western imperialism, Zheng He became a symbol of China's historical greatness and its potential to reclaim a leadership role on the global stage. His voyages were framed as evidence of China's peaceful rise, contrasting with the exploitive colonial practices of Western powers. These narratives have been further emphasised in recent years, particularly under the Belt and Road Initiative, as China seeks to resonate itself as a global leader through infrastructure, investment and economic partnerships. However, the resurrection also highlights the ways in which historical figures can be weaponised for political purposes. While Zheng He's voyages were undoubtedly a remarkable achievement, their portrayal is purely peaceful and overlooks for its military capabilities and its role in asserting Ming dominance. The selective memory of Zheng He's legacy serves as a reminder of how history can be shaped to serve contemporary agendas. While Zheng He and his male crew dominated the narrative of the Ming Voyages, the role of women in the maritime history is often overlooked. One significant figure is the sea goddess worshipped by sailors. Also known as Mazu, she was believed to protect mariners from storms and other perils at sea. Temples dedicated were built along the coast of China and Southeast Asia, serving as spiritual hubs for sailors and merchants. Additionally, women played a crucial role in the economic networks that supported the voyages. Female traders in port cities and facilitated the exchange of goods and cultural practices. acting as intermediaries between Chinese merchants and local communities. While their contributions are less documented, they were vital to the success of the Ming maritime enterprise. The Ming Voyages were not without environmental consequences. The construction of the massive treasure fleet required vast quantities of timber, leading to the deforestation of ancient forests in southern China. The large-scale logging likely disrupted local ecosystems and contributed to environmental degradation. Moreover, the voyages facilitated the exchange of flora and fauna across countries, introducing new species to foreign environments. While the exchange enriched agricultural practices in some regions, it also disrupted local ecosystems, a phenomenon later seen on a much larger scale during the Columbian Exchange. The environmental impact of the Ming Voyages serves as an early example of ecological consequences of globalization. China's contemporary Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) has often been compared to the Ming Dynasty's tributary system, with both serving as mechanisms for extending China's influence. Like the Treasury Voyages, the BRI emphasises infrastructure, development, trade and cultural exchange as tools of diplomacy. However, there are key differences. While the tribunary system was built on Confucius' ideas of harmony and mutual respect, the BRI operates within a modern global economy driven by competition and strategic interests. Critics have accused the BRI of creating debt dependency among participating nations, contrasting sharply with the natures of Zheng He's missions. Nevertheless, both endeavours reflect China's strategic use of soft power to establish itself as a central player on the global stage. The epic medieval Chinese voyages led by Zheng He were a defining moment in the history of exploration, showcasing the heights of human ingenuity and the complexities of cultural exchange. From their technological advancements to their diplomatic achievements, these expeditions left a profound legacy that continues to inspire and provoke debate. Yet they also serve as a cautionary tale about the fragility of progress and the ways in which history can be reshaped to serve contemporary agendas. As we reflect on Zheng He's voyages, we are reminded of the power of exploration to connect civilizations and to transform the world. At the same time, we must confront the environmental and political costs of such endeavours, both past and present. By studying the Ming Voyages, we gain not only a deeper understanding of history, but also a lens through which to examine our own era's challenges and opportunities. What lessons can we learn from the past, and how can we chart a course toward a more equal and sustainable future? The answers lie in the stories we choose to tell and those we strive to uncover. And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, concludes today's lesson at the Butterfly Princess Academy, where curiosity takes flight and wisdom wears wings. I would like now to take this opportunity to thank you for joining me for today's lesson, and hope that you will be able to join me in the very near future for more lessons at the Butterfly Princess Academy. But until then, next time, take care, and I will see you very soon. Bye bye for now.